It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is
The Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to the hyperspace. Podcasting in the 25th century, the interweb's first and still only podcast. My name is Jared.
My name's Matt.
I'm Mike.
Though, technically, Jared could be either Martin Cove or John Kreese.
Or a homeless woman.
From his ID. But
Yes, I could.
Strike
Hey,
a
you
pose.
know-
hey, guys, welcome back.
Hey, welcome
This
back.
is a big day. This is a big day.
It's a big day. You can see here we are once again back to the Karate Kid virgin. That virgin is this man right over here.
No.
Oh, well, that's what it looks like on my screen. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's all screwed up. So anyway, Mike, we've made it through Karate Kid Part 3. And now we come to the continuation of Daniel's story, but most importantly, Johnny's story. And today we're going to talk about Season 1 of Cobra Kai. So let's start talking about it, guys. Me and Matt have seen this show several times. So just at the beginning here, what did you think about Cobra Kai?
It's terrible. That's all I got to say.
All right. Me and Matt will talk about it then.
I'm just joking.
I'm actually really surprised that you watched it as soon as you did, coming off Karate Kid 3. I thought you would have taken like a sabbatical
No,
from
and
Karate Kid.
didn't you... Was I having a fever dream that said you watched Part 4?
Oh, I did. In fact, yeah, I think we should do a mini discussion. Oh, everyone, listen.
Which
Matt
one?
and Jared
Okay.
don't want to. So if you'd like to hear our thoughts on Karate Kid,
Which one
Next
is Part 4? Is that the one with...
Hilary Swank.
That's Hillary Swank.
flood us
That's not the next
with
Karate
messages.
Kid,
That is
right?
the
With,
next Karate Kid.
Jaden. Which one is the one with
That's
Jaden,
the reboot. That has
Yeah, we don't
nothing to
count
do
that.
with it.
We
Okay.
don't count that.
All right. Okay.
But apparently the part...
I've never seen the one
Well,
with Jennifer Garner.
Listen, not Jennifer.
Or Hillary
Gar-
Swank.
Hillary
I'm sorry.
Swank.
Hillary-
Get them,
Jennifer
I
Garner.
get
I'm-
them confused.
They kind of look the same to me.
I'm going to say it's worth a watch. It is outrageous. I mean, it's like they take the Karate Kid and just adrenalize it. With,
I mean, not that we. No, I don't want to get into that movie, but just like we did say in Karate Kid 3, how it was just almost like a cartoon of a movie compared to how the first one was. Is this one even worse?
well, okay.
I don't want to spoil anything
well,
because I know we're going to talk
The
about it.
female is the lead, Hillary
Right.
Swank.
Yes.
There are things that happen that you're like it's full on like assaults on a woman by a man, and you're like, what the hell?
Times were different.
And it's very like
It was 1994.
as unlikable as Johnny is. These people are pretty. These bullies are pretty repulsive and unredeemable.
No.
And they
Okay,
get
I'm not-
the Martin
I'm-
Cove replacement is Michael Ironside, who is of course like
Michael
I love Michael
Ironside.
Ironside.
who is the can be like one of the most evil people.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, it's not good, but it's shocking. It's very shocking. I mean,
Okay.
there's like a scene in it where you're like, I can't believe I'm watching this right now.
Well, I can't believe I'm going to be watching that for this.
I will
but-
say nothing like sexual or anything like that, but it gets borderline like yikes. So anyway,
Well, all right. Well, I'm not looking forward to seeing that, but I will take one for the team and watch it. But today we're going to talk Cobra Kai, and I'm really happy that Mike, you got through it because we've been really looking forward to talking about Cobra Kai.
Well, the stars aligned, and I was able to actually knock them out in 2 days.
I mean, one of the fun things about Karate Kid, the first movie, was that it was a great movie. It was well cast, and it had, all the right things to make a good movie happen. And then the series did, slowly kind of degenerated, and happy nostalgic memories, but looking back on those other movies, they're not great. So you never really thought that you needed more Karate Kid until you needed more Karate Kid. Yeah. And when this was announced, it felt right, but you were cautious.
See, when I heard about it, I thought, this is ridiculous. They're making a TV show on Karate Kid.
Of course.
Do we need
but
that?
Then you're like, but you're curious. You know you were curious.
The only reason I checked it out, because a few years ago, I watched like the first 2 episodes. And I was surprised. It was before, it was on YouTube and you had to pay for YouTube, and I'm not paying for YouTube. Right. And, but I'd heard some positive things even back then. But I mean, when I first heard about this show, I thought it was the most ridiculous idea.
Yeah. I had some pretty low expectations. I didn't expect much from the show, and I'm glad I went in with low expectations, because to me, I think the show completely blew me away. And season 1 was, I think, spectacular television. Just fun to watch. It was fun TV. And it's the show you never knew you needed in your life.
Well, the thing about it is it's very smartly written. Basically it's a soap opera. It's a lot of family drama. Mm-hmm. But everything feels organic. Nothing is like thrust upon you. Like it flows. Like when you watch them 1 through 10 episodes, the whole season just flows together. Mm-hmm. You feel like you're watching one continuous episode. Mm-hmm. There's not really any. I didn't really feel like there was any filler episodes. And also another thing too that because one of my big concerns about watching it was I was afraid they were gonna, because it was obviously focused on Johnny, and you can't have Johnny be who he was in the movie and sustain a series, because it would be unwatchable because he's so nasty, and that was in that movie he's in.
He's pretty one-dimensional too in those movies.
So you knew they were going to have to like do some kind of redemption type story. But my concern was that they were going to flip it and make Daniel the villain. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they did that. In fact, I think both characters are flawed, but I think they both have they're both likable. I mean, you both mm-hmm. And you can kind of, with Johnny, you kind of like, it's definitely his journey.
Yeah.
But
but I mean, look, William Zabka has not lost a step for Johnny Lawrence. And the funny thing is that, LaRusso's character has evolved, and, he's, a family man. He's professional. He owns a car dealership.
He's still a hothead.
He's still a hothead, just like he was. You're right. But Johnny, in the first movie, Johnny was a normal, popular kid. He's a bully, but he was a popular kid. He obviously had
well, I think his bulliness stemmed from the fact that he had power in the Martin Cove's or Crease's teaching.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
and that's where he got it.
Lent itself to that character, but then
absolute
what's
power
amusing
corrupts
is that
absolutely, and he was corrupted by that.
Jump ahead 30 plus years, Johnny has become a caveman, and it is amazing to watch him go through the world and not know what things are. Like, he has no concept of the internet. He doesn't understand computers. He is stuck a generation in the past. It's amazing to watch.
I would say 2 generations.
Yeah,
maybe.
He
has a flip phone. I'll give him 1 generation.
Well, yeah, he does have a flip phone. Obviously, Daniel seemed to have an easier path to where he is. I think Daniel, he took he seemed to make all the right choices. And I think that had a lot to do, as we find out in season 1, Miyagi was still in his life until 2011. So Pat Morita died, I think, in 05 or 06, but we see on his gravestone that he died in 2011. And so
he's not that far removed from his life.
Sure. Right. And so Daniel still had Miyagi in his life well into adulthood.
Mhm.
And as we see in the show, Johnny has Ed Asner as his stepfather.
Who is
Yeah.
looking old.
Yes. And
Ed Asner was
who-
always one of those people that was kind of frozen in time. If you watch him in any show that or movie he's been in through his career, he looks like Ed Asner. And this is the first thing you see him in when you're like, whoa, yikes.
he's also one of those celebrities I thought died 15 years ago. But
he was
apparently
also
not.
Jabba the Hutt in the Return of the Jedi radio drama.
He was
Oh,
indeed.
nice.
There will be no bargain.
But
Well, I mean, it was a good backstory for Johnny
Yes.
to be introduced to it. It kind of, they really put the puzzle pieces together for who Johnny, was as a kid
Yeah.
and who he kind of is now,
and
and
we
built a very dimensional character. Where Johnny Lawrence in the first movie, there wasn't too many dimensions that we got to see from him. We got to see a little, but not much. Now he's a very rich character, and I mean, what they did with Johnny in just a few episodes is amazing because it blows the whole world open in your nostalgic mind of going, you start to put all those lenses together, and when you start thinking back to Karate Kid, you cannot help but think about Cobra Kai now because the canon has continued and it's so much richer and fuller of a story. It's amazing.
Well,
it really is amazing.
Johnny he's like one of those people we all know. His best days are behind him.
Yeah.
And he still lives his senior year of high school. And that's where he wants to live because, after his, you got to think after his mom died, he has a terrible relationship with his stepfather.
Mhm.
Obviously, he has gone from being a kid who was wealthy to a man who is scraping by as a handyman, getting abused by the people he works with.
I'll say I get the sense that he's where he is by design because he has no drive. Even in fact, when he meets the kid, I can't remember the kid's name. The first one who joins his dojo, what's his name?
Miguel.
Miguel. He says to Miguel, he goes, "You know why I'm here? Because I don't have to talk to anybody."
Yes.
It's like he's made that decision. Like he's comfortable where he's at.
Yeah, and I guess but there are those circumstances that have brought him there, and seems perfectly content. I mean, maybe not 100% content, but I mean that's Johnny he's no longer the star athlete of high school,
Mhm.
and you can tell the stories he tells Miguel in this show. He's always talking about high school.
Yeah.
And about Allie. He's still hung up on Allie all these years later.
It's an interesting device in how they kind of reconnect Daniel and Johnny by the girls slamming his car.
One of which was
D-
his daughter, Daniel's
Yeah.
daughter's in the car. Then his car
Exactly.
gets towed to.
LaRusso Auto.
But you know what? I like that moment when he walks in. He's trying to get out because he doesn't want to see
Yeah.
Daniel.
Yes.
And then I really like the way Daniel is very friendly to him.
Yeah.
It's like everything that happened before, all that's like water under the bridge.
I don't get that it was a total water under the bridge moment, though. There's a position of power that Daniel has now in life with, his success. Johnny's in his dealership looking for help from him.
Yeah, but I didn't really get a sense that Daniel was gloating or was taking any satisfaction in it.
I don't know. The kind of when he's like by hearing the conversation from his employee saying like this is the guy you kicked, right?
No, he goes, "This is the guy's ass you kicked,"
Exactly.
and
so
he's like, "I kicked his face."
But I like
I mean,
the little. It was an illegal kick, and he goes, "Yeah, but you." Was it something like when he hit his knee or something like that? That was like kind of a cool little.
But you're right though. It's not like there was open animosity there, and they just want to. Johnny especially just wants to get in and out and get this done.
Yeah.
But it's such a great way to get the relationship going again.
Yeah. And in that scene, Daniel, he does show compassion once his audience isn't there, and he's just talking to Johnny. He's like, you know what? This one's on the house. He goes, let me just fix this for you. And he's like, it'll be good work for my guys to work on an older car. And, and so you see there, Daniel has like a good heart. He's a good guy. But then Johnny's like, I don't want your charity. And he's like, this your car isn't worth what it takes to fix. And he's like, I'll just take it somewhere else.
In season 1, my favorite moments are when the two of them are having their best moments together, where they're starting to act friendly. It's a great warm feeling to watch this show and to see them not hating each other.
That's when the show is really the most intriguing. Like when they're doing the test drive, and that leads to the bar scene.
Oreo Speedwagon comes on,
and they're looking at Allie's husband and making fun of him. And
on Facebook,
yeah. And I mean, all that stuff is just great. And then and it's like you have that moment when you're like, oh, okay, they're going to be friends. Because that's the thing about it. You get the sense. I think the main problem is they could almost be friends, but they're not communicating. Like, I think if Johnny kind of told him what was going on, Daniel would be more sympathetic. But of course, Daniel's like, he has that animosity towards Cobra Kai, so he's being presumptive that Johnny's following in the footsteps. But that also leads me to, like, I tell you who I think is a really good character on that show is Daniel's wife.
I agree,
because she is like his conscious. I can never say that word right.
Conscience.
But when she says, like, when they're arguing with there's that great moment when he's got the landlord to raise the rent on Johnny's dojo, and she's like, hey, well, what about those other people? You screwed them over too. And then she says, I don't know who this person is, but I want the Daniel I married back.
Oh, that's such a great. I forgot about that scene.
And then when he comes over after Daniel's cousin sets his car on fire, they are literally about to get into it. Yeah. And she comes out and she's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you two seem to have this pretty well in hand. It's a normal Saturday afternoon, a couple of grown men about to kick each other into a pool. As much as I would love to watch you and your childhood karate rival duke it out, I kind of don't want to get any blood on the patio. So what do you say we try to resolve this over some breakfast instead?
Just stop. Come in and let's talk about it. And that's a great scene, too, when they're... But anytime you have Johnny and Daniel together, I mean, it's like such a great interaction, and it's funny. And then when Daniel's son comes in, and then, because Johnny's he just doesn't care. He'll say whatever. And that's another thing, too. He's so not PC, and that's like a kind of a character. It's almost like a character you can't get away with now, the way he's just so... Like, hey,
he's like, I don't want to hear about any of your made up allergies.
Yeah. He throws his inhaler across the room.
We do not allow weakness in this dojo. So you can leave your asthma and your peanut allergies and all that other made up bullshit outside. Is that understood?
Oh, what about the scene where he has everyone get punched in the face?
Yes.
And you can hear them in the background.
Like,
He goes, what, is there blood? He goes, well, no, that's not it. But yeah, there's some blood.
It's so funny. He's so
just
great.
having those people beat each other.
But I like watching the scenes where Johnny is growing as a person. Like when he's at the town hall meeting trying to pitch Cobra Kai.
That was a
to be in the tournament.
really great scene, especially with
because you have Daniel who's
in there.
But Daniel's being kind of a prick.
Yep.
He's in a position of power.
Yep.
He's in a position of community status.
He's also very cocky too,
and he's using his weight to try to diminish and demean Johnny, whom he hadn't been doing, in the beginning of the show, but through when he got Cobra Kai going, as you said, he assumed that Cobra Kai is a bad thing. So now he's trying to make Johnny into a bad guy in front of this whole audience, and Daniel starts looking like a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you see the growth where Johnny, 30 years ago would have gone off the handle on him. Johnny now he
takes the advice
a little bit
of his student, and he has that great moment.
Mr. Lawrence, what is your relationship to this Terry Silver?
Ma'am, I have no idea who that even is. I'm just a small business owner trying to make a living.
Oh, please. Ask him about John Kreese.
John Kreese is dead.
We're very sorry for your loss.
Give me a break.
Daniel, show a little respect.
Respect? Are you kidding me, Sue? You don't know the history here.
It's a great little soliloquy speech he has there. They mention, there's some great misdirection in the show because you've got, they mention John Kreese, and obviously Johnny said John Kreese died.
Oh, yeah.
And they mentioned Terry Silver, and he's like, I don't know who Terry Silver is.
Yeah.
And there's some great little connective tissue that they bring in for the movies, and some great misdirect for the later on, especially the very season finale, season 1, and because you kind of assume, well, maybe John Kreese is dead because Martin Kove was not announced on that show.
No,
they kept him really quiet.
Yeah,
like it was a legitimate surprise at the end.
See, I already knew he was on it, so that wasn't a big surprise.
Yeah, well, he's all over the marketing now, but
oh yeah,
when it first came on, it was...
when that came out, you hoped, but you didn't know, and it was a great.
And I tell you, I want to bring up a point after because we talked about it offline, something. But I will say that the scene where he gets the band lifted, and that's the same time that Miguel's on the date with Daniel's daughter, and so he walks into the dojo and Johnny's all hyped up and he goes, "Who's the man?" He goes, "I'm the man." And wait, Johnny has that great guy goes, "Wait, are you the man too?" and I love,
and that's like I love how they recreated, by the way, Daniel's date and Miguel's date. Scene for scene with the same music.
With the golf and stuff, and they had the same music from the soundtrack.
Like scene by scene, cut by cut, was almost the exact same thing.
Something, we can obviously talk about Daniel and Johnny, but I like the relationship between Miguel and Johnny. I think that's really strong, and I think it's a credit to the show that it can hold your interest. I'll be interested to see what you say about this, Mike. Because I know how much of a fan of like young adult soap operas that you are, but there's plenty of that in this show. I mean, do you find yourself liking those characters? Or
I think
is it more like, hey, let's just get to Daniel and John?
No, because because that's the thing was where I talk about it's the soap opera, and here I'll do a quick. Okay, so it's like Daniel's daughter is dating Johnny's student. They're trying to keep it a secret. But also at the same time, Johnny's biological son has gotten a job with Daniel, but now there's a bond growing between them two. And that's another case of where Johnny's son could have easily been like, he's another character that's going through a redemptive arc. And, you have the great moment where Daniel throws him out of his life, tells him he doesn't want to see him again, but then when they get to the tournament, and it's all contrived, but it works. It's all organic. It works so well that you just kind of ignore that. The fact that he comes in without a teacher, then Daniel, starts cheering for him. And you're really glad to see that because he was his student and it wasn't his fault what happened. And Daniel, once again, wasn't listening. Mm-hmm. But then, but anyway, I think all this stuff works because it's central to the relationship between Johnny and Daniel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not stuff that feels superfluous, like you need that stuff because it's part of the drama that moves their arcs forward.
It's the kindling in the fire.
But also, too, what's interesting is the end, Johnny sees the fruits of his work when Miguel exploits Johnny's son, Robbie's weakness. And he's even telling him, he's like, no, don't do that. You don't want to win this way. But he's like, no, this is what you taught us.
I know. He's like, you've been telling us this the whole time.
So Johnny's suddenly faced with, this is, I basically created Frankenstein's monster and he's loose.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, too, because, I think Johnny was going through his own, he was going through a productive growth curve in the show. And, Daniel wasn't necessarily wrong by being worried about Cobra Kai because Cobra Kai brought back some of Johnny's, worst tendencies. Even though he was pushing kids in the right direction, he did kind of fall back onto some of the Cobra Kai mantra of, being overly hard and, obviously no mercy. Mm-hmm. And, obviously learning at the end there, all his teachings and what he's passed on to these kids, although good intentions, weren't necessarily the best kind of lessons.
And that's something I was going to bring up, what you just said. The difference between him and Kreese is Johnny's intentions are good. Mm-hmm. He's just using the way he was taught, which you see at the end. You see that's the problem because he actually genuinely cares for these kids and wants them to be successful, as opposed to Kreese, who's just using them as tools, you know.
Yeah. You know, going back to the first scene where Miguel and Johnny meet at this convenience store, and Johnny's just trying to eat his dirty slice of pizza,
gas station pizza,
and then all these punks roll up on
another good casting, because every one of those kids you want to see Johnny beat up.
Yes. And so, you know, Johnny doesn't get involved until they touch his car, and then he's like, wait a second.
Yeah, but you can tell he's like kind of conflicted.
It bothers him.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, I should do something, but you know, I don't want to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the car thing's an excuse.
And then he full on assaults a bunch of minors.
I'm not even sure if I can be around you right now.
Yeah. Not even sure I can be but I thought that was a great way to bring them together. And you know, the poor kid got Pepto-Bismol and they started calling him Maria, which that made me laugh. I mean, anything that involves poop is funny to me.
It's great casting. It's very fun writing.
Yes.
And you know, it's one of those shows. You know, it's funny. You know, I try to get my wife to watch a lot of stuff, and you know, she likes what she likes. But Cobra Kai was one of those things where I got her to watch, and she's hooked on the show. Hooked on it. I mean, one season would end, and she would just every week be like, "Did they announce the next season? When's it coming?" Because you know, it's just that much fun. It's that good of a show. Even if Karate Kid wasn't that big of a part of your life as a kid, you have to look at this show and just realize this is just fun, good escapism writing. Yeah, and it's really spectacular. And I would challenge anybody to, they could even watch the show, although it'd be beneficial to see the movie first. Sure. But I think the show stands alone by itself as just great TV.
But you know, I love the way they use the old movies in like small flashes, because it really gives it like a history. Like, no, that's not an actor pretending to be young Daniel. That's Ralph Macchio 35 years ago. Yeah. And he's the same character.
I thought that when Johnny got kicked in the face, that they had recreated that either through computer generation or something. I had no idea when I first saw it that piece of film was a real piece of film.
Yes.
Where they, scrapped it. I don't know how they saved it. It's in perfect condition. Where Johnny takes the crane kick straight to the face up close, which they show in the show. Yeah.
Although him falling on the mat was definitely a recreation.
Yes, but some of that stuff is just pure gold that they saved. Yeah, and really, that's really what the show is. Well, it's pure gold.
We talked about this too, is how fortunate for that show that all these characters are well preserved enough to be able to come back to the show. Yeah, I mean, the guy that plays Johnny looks he's in great shape. Ralph Macchio, he's in better shape than he was in 3, or for half of 3. His mom even now at first I was wondering if she was a recast because her hair is completely gray and short. Mm-hmm. But once she starts talking, you're like, oh, okay, that's her.
Oh yeah, it's her. Yeah.
And I mean, it's just amazing they were able to bring these people back. And also too, I love that they didn't shy away from 3. I'm glad they didn't ignore it, because I think that's kind of a cop-out when they do that with sequels. We're like, well, we're just going to pretend like the bad one didn't happen. And, and I think they get some great mileage out of it. Like when Daniel's wife is like, oh, yeah, like that time you guys started a bonsai store, that was a great idea. Kind of ribbing him about that, which it was kind of a goofy idea. But the fact that they can bring these people back and, the announcement of who they're bringing back for season 4 is another feather in their cap that they're able to do. I mean, it's just kind of cool. And I hope they do acknowledge the 4th one somehow. I mean, I'd love to see like Hilary Swank come to some memorial and go, Mr. Miyagi was a great teacher to me too. Just something
the guys
silly.
The guys who make this show, and I can't recall their names, but they've been on it since the beginning. They said all of the movies with Pat Morita are canon because they've been asked about bringing Hilary Swank onto the show, and they said, well, at this point nothing's out of bounds. They're like, hey, what What if Daniel meets this lost student of Miyagi's that he never knew about? It may happen. You never know.
I will say too, as someone who enjoys franchises, I'm really glad I watched the first 3. I kind of wish I'd watched 3 without us talking over it, but I don't really think I missed that much, to be honest with you.
No, now you have to go back and watch it by yourself.
But I feel like if these were released on Blu-ray, I would maybe have like a Karate Kid set on my shelf, including
It's kind of a cool time that this is coming out too. I mean, when you think about it, like if this had tried to be pitched 10, 15 years ago, nobody would have picked this show up. And in fact, with all the streaming networks that exist, it was YouTube Red that agreed to make this series. This was it was almost, non-existent, Cobra Kai. Mm-hmm. It was a great deal that they struck with YouTube. And it was, that was a windfall for them. I mean, I joined Premium just to watch the show. But
did the 2 writers, have they done anything? Did they come from somewhere else?
I got to look them up. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm kind of wondering because I know Will Smith was a producer, so I'm sure he was I'm sure his name being attached to it gave it some mileage. But
sure, yeah. But I mean, but it was interesting how it was YouTube that picked it up and made it, and it was a great show. I mean, it was top-notch production.
Well, it's funny.
And then of course Netflix got it and ran with
it.
it.
Yeah, YouTube didn't make it, but the show survived.
Yeah. And actually, once Netflix picked it up, it like blew up because everybody was watching the first 2 seasons. Because they had not, they weren't some of the 17 people who had joined YouTube Red, and so it was all new to them, and they were just discovering the show.
Yeah.
So
really fantastic. What a great reboot. It's such a fun show. I look forward to every season when it comes out, and we'll get more into the seasons as we go. But
I will say
the first season was definitely there's nothing realistic about the series in that regard. It's fantastical, but I think season 1 really felt the most real. Season 2 and season 3 were fun, but there's something about season 1 that was just
interesting. My brother, because I started watching that. My brother was in the room, and he mentioned something similar. He said he liked the first season a lot, but he said he felt the next 2 seasons were a little more comedy oriented,
a little more fantastical.
Well,
but
yeah, I don't.
That said, they were still really, really watchable.
No, I think
really
they
fun.
were funny, and funny in the way that season 1 was funny, kind of organically through Johnny's, ignorance of everything.
Mm-hmm.
In season 2 and 3, it does press maybe the bounds of what you would consider something realistic. I'm not talking about Daniel and Johnny going to space or anything, but
or climbing down a cliff inside a giant hole.
Well,
in the earth.
No, none of that. But I think by that time the series has like earned your goodwill, and you're just happy that I think I was texting Matt when season 3 was on. I was like, do these kids have parents?
Yeah,
because the stuff that's happening in this show, but it's still a lot of fun. But before we move off of season 1, I think one of my favorite scenes was Johnny giving all the new kids nicknames when he's walking around. I mean, off the top of my head, he does make mention of one young boy's breasts, I think.
You one of those challenged kids?
The doctor said I could be on the spectrum.
I don't know what that is, but get off it pronto, all right? If you don't want me to call you lip, then don't have a weird lip. Can't you get surgery for that?
I was born with a cleft lip. This is the scar from the surgery.
You mean it was worse before that? Or did the doctor just screw? Because if this is the after photo, then that sucks, man. You should sue.
It's interesting because that was how people in our generation spoke to each other.
Yes. That's the thing. That's Johnny.
Johnny hasn't moved on.
And now it's like, you can't say that's cyberbullying or whatever. And it's like, no, that's just how we communicated.
I mean, look, I think in the show, any Johnny caveman moment is a great moment. I live for every moment where it exposed him as an ignoramus in this modern society.
Yeah.
And it's just so
He's
much
like,
fun to watch.
What's Facebook?
For someone who hasn't talked to Allie in decades, you sure know an awful lot about her, man.
I've seen her on Facebook.
What's a Facebook?
Wow. Really, John? Come on.
Allie Mills Schwarber? That's her last name now?
No.
Wow, what a downgrade. Are there any photos? I wonder how she's holding up.
You gotta be a friend to see them. I never friend requested her.
Why not?
Because I'm a happily married man. I don't need to be snooping around my ex's photos. Besides, she never friend requested me either, so...
Hold on, is that her husband? Let's see what this loser looks like. Look at that dumb face.
Yeah, what an asshole.
Mike, you were saying, I think that scene with them at the bar where they go visit Daniel's old apartment, which, continuity error, in Karate Kid Part 3, they were tearing down those apartments.
Maybe they were just refacing them.
It's possible, but it seemed...
Yeah, just assume that's what they were doing.
It seemed
I thought they were just roofing it. That's what I thought. They were putting a roof on it.
Well,
they're great moments, and
Sure.
you're right. From the car ride to where they start to sing the same song, and they're in the bar. Anytime
You like Speedwagon?
You like Speedwagon?
What kind of man doesn't? But if you don't like it, I mean...
No. Sorry.
And that's like, and that, you know what? I'm actually an REO Speedwagon fan myself, and I love that song. So I was kind of like singing along with them, like,
Sure.
What if I'm a friend who...
But it's a great moment, and that's where that show has got a lot of magic. You're taking these two characters, and every time they bond, you feel good.
Yeah,
you feel good watching.
I just hope when the show wraps up that they end up as friends. I would like to see that.
By the way, before we end, I will say that the season finale, which I thought was phenomenal, with Martin Kove coming in, John Kreese, the whole dialogue, the lighting, the silhouetting, everything about that was great. I wasn't sure. My gut guess, which I was wrong as it turned out, was I thought it was
He was a
like a
cyborg?
Fight Club moment. No, like a Fight Club moment where like
No cyborgs.
Johnny was having a crisis. He was drinking, and I thought that John Kreese was going to be kind of like a psyche thing appearing that just would kind of haunt him.
he wasn't real.
I thought I'm like, is John Kreese real? I don't know if he's real or not. I wasn't convinced that he was a real person.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he turns out to be a real person, but it was excellent, brilliantly done, and I thought that season finale couldn't have been better.
Cobra Kai is back where it belongs. Back on top. Everyone closed the book on us. They thought we were done. But now they see that the real story's only just begun.
And,
Dun.
And he looks great too, by the way. Martin Kove has aged very well.
he looks a lot. He's definitely recognizable. But I think it's fair to say John Kreese is about to ruin a lot of people's lives. So
There's a lot about
Spoiler
John
alert.
Kreese.
Well,
They do a good job in the show. Listen, they go into his character too. So I mean,
well,
it's a great show.
my only concern is I hope they don't stretch it out too far. Sometimes a show just doesn't know when to, wrap it up.
With 3 seasons so far, each one has been very entertaining and has left me wanting more. So
yeah, I haven't gotten to the point where I feel like we're spinning our wheels in this show, and it's just kind of like just taking advantage of me as a viewer.
There's not a Johnny's
still giving me
tattoo
great stuff.
episode.
It's giving me great stuff.
No, there's not a Johnny's tattoo episode. No.
Well, I'm thrilled that we got this far, and this has been a fun series so far, exploring Mike's virginity, and
I don't want to explore that.
no, I'm thrilled that he got to
Yeah.
Cobra Kai already. I
Yes.
really thought that we were going to have to wait a long time.
It is fun to talk to Mike finally about Cobra Kai. So
Jared and I have been side chain texting here to keep Mike off every time Cobra Kai comes on.
yeah,
Now we can talk to him.
now we can talk. So by the time season 4 rolls out later this year, we'll all be ready to go.
Do they have a date
Nice.
announced when it's supposed to air?
They launched season 3 in January of this, like January 1st of this year, and they're saying December. So
Maybe. I hope so. We'll see.
But it's
we
done.
Wait a long
it's,
time
it's,
for.
It's in the can. I mean, it's shot. So
yeah.
We'll of course we will all be Karate Kid virgins at that point when we talk about season 4. So
true.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us at the Cobra Kai dojo.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're watching this podcast, thanks for watching us. Visit our YouTube channel. We've got some great videos just like this and more. Or find us on your favorite podcatcher. We're on every podcatcher you can imagine. So spread the word.
All of them.
Ask your friends to listen. Subscribe. Pass it on. That's how we get by. This is all we do. We're scraping. We're like Johnny Lawrence. We got banquet beer cans in the background and no paint on the walls, and we're just learning how to use the laptop. So
quiet.
Quiet.
Zabka can do a quiet, man. He can.
Quiet. Quiet.
Anyway,
more to come. Thanks, guys.
Quiet.
You know you can't live without this content. So subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.